observant of that which was holy and that which was precious in their lives.
Guidelines for the relationship between parents and children are well developed in Jewish law and literature. Children are seen as an extension of the parents, and the ideal family is characterized by unbounded mutual love and mutual responsibilities. Children are taught to respect and honor their parents. Children are also treasured in Jewish life, and in former times barrenness, or what we would call infertility, was seen as a terrible curse. If a wife had no children after 10 years of marriage, Jewish law and custom permitted bigamy in order to produce children. Jewish life receives a very special meaning and rhythm from its kaleidoscopic variety of festivals, feasts, and family occasions. These events punctuate the Jewish year and give it spice and a unique character.
See, this is one of the wonderful things about Judaism to me, is that it is a celebration of life in our holidays, in our daily activities. But if you would ask, what is the most important holiday that you celebrate? I would say the Sabbath.
On the Sabbath, once a week, the Jew devotes himself to his family, his community, and his God.
It is a day that you are cut off from the labors and the worries that afflict a person for 6 days a week.
And it's a time when the family is together, when there's a special meal on Friday evening and the family relaxes around the dinner table and sings Sabbath songs, and then goes to synagogue or temple to attend worship services with the community. But the Sabbath is also a time for study.
The three festivals, the Passover, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Booths or Tabernacles, continue to be kept in the synagogue and the home, and they remain joyous occasions. The first of these three annual feasts is the Spring Passover Festival. In ancient times, Passover marked the beginning of the barley harvest, and it also was the anniversary of the Exodus from Egypt. In ancient days, the pilgrims in Jerusalem on Passover would sacrifice and eat the Paschal lamb in grateful remembrance of these events. The Last Supper of Jesus is generally regarded as having been a Passover meal. The Passover festival lasts for a week, and in memory of their forefathers' plight, Jews are commanded to eat only unleavened bread, which takes the form of wafers. The Feast of Weeks occurs 50 days after Passover. In temple times, this agricultural festival celebrated the first fruits of the early summer, and the pilgrim brought an offering to the temple from the wheat harvest. The Feast of Weeks falls on the date traditionally linked with the giving of the Torah to Moses on Mount Sinai, so the feast is also known as the Feast of the Giving of the Law. The third of the three main pilgrimage festivals occurs in the fall, when the harvest has been gathered. It's called the Feast of Booths, or the Feast of Tabernacles. This was the most joyful of the three festivals. It received its historical symbolism by commemorating the 40-year wanderings of the children of Israel in the wilderness. During that time, the Israelites lived in tent-like booths or tabernacles. Jews, during this festival, live in booths constructed in their gardens or on the balconies or roofs of their houses.
Those are the very joyful experiences. Now we have solemn occasions too in Jewish life. The holiest days of the year are Rosh Hashanah, the religious New Year, and 10 days later, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, in the fall of the year. And these are the times when the focus is not on the home as it is in the other holidays, but on the synagogue or the temple, when Jews gather to ask God's forgiveness for the sins of omission or commission of the past year, and to seek to begin a new year with a clean slate. Now those are the major solemn occasions and festivals that we celebrate, though I have to add that Hanukkah, which is the only holiday we celebrate that is not based in Hebrew Scriptures, has become a major holiday, probably because it is at the same season of the year as Christmas, but it is a time for joy and celebration based on a wonderful story of the first victory for religious liberty in recorded history, found in the Apocrypha in the first and second books of Maccabee. And then we celebrate Purim, which again is a minor holiday because it isn't found in Torah, but is found in the Hebrew Scriptures, that celebrates again the emancipation of Jews from the tyranny of a despot who would destroy us.
When the Jews were in Persia, an enemy rose against them, and the queen was a Jewish queen, and she helped and saved her people at that time. We have a big celebration, and kids get into costumes then, and all kinds of cavorting goes on, and they have a great, great time. They love it.
Freedom is a theme that enters into all of these major holidays. The aspiration to be free to worship the one God and to live at peace as a community.
The second cycle of special Jewish occasions consists of the milestones in family life. These milestones start with marriage, which in Jewish tradition has two main purposes: procreation and companionship. Weddings can be held anywhere, but the synagogue is a favored venue. The ceremony is held in the open air if possible, to recall God's promise to Abraham that his progeny would be as numerous as the stars. At the Jewish marriage ceremony, a canopy is held over the couple to symbolize the home that they are about to establish. After marriage, the next event in the family cycle is the birth of a child. Adam and Eve were ordered by God to be fruitful and multiply, and this was seen by Jews as the first of the commandments. If the child is a boy, a circumcision ceremony takes place 1 week after birth. Among young Jewish couples today, there is a growing custom to hold a name-giving feast also for a daughter.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu.
On reaching the age of 13, a Jewish boy is seen as an adult, and he becomes responsible for his own deeds and religious observance. Only since the Middle Ages has this been the occasion for a special ceremony, but now the Bar Mitzvah has become one of the central events in the Jewish life cycle. In the 20th century, a parallel ceremony has been introduced for girls at the age of 12, called the Bat Mitzvah. Jewish laws of mourning are detailed. Burial should occur as soon as possible, a practice reflecting Judaism's origin in a hot climate. Orthodox Jews oppose cremation because they believe that it denies the possibility of bodily resurrection, but cremation is permitted in Reform Judaism. Since life is so precious, Jewish tradition says that death must not be precipitated by euthanasia or by the smallest action that may hasten death.
Overall, the basic ethical principle is that if a human life is at stake, any other law falls to the side. Saving human life takes precedence over everything. There are only 3 prohibitions that are higher than preservation of life. That is, you can't do these things even if it means somebody else dies. And that's committing incest, committing murder yourself, or idolatry. But anything else, the preservation of life takes precedence.
From the Mosaic Code, the rabbis have derived 613 commandments for the Jew to observe. As we have seen, many of these relate to the synagogue and family life, to feasts and to fasts. Hundreds of the commandments relate to the temple ritual and to agricultural life in ancient Israel, and these have been unused for almost 2,000 years. But other commandments affect every corner of everyday life. The most obvious are the dietary or kosher laws. Many kinds of animals are totally forbidden, including shellfish and any form of pig meat. There are basic rules for the ritual slaughter of animals to ensure a quick and humane death. Other rules prescribe how to properly draw off the blood, which is seen as the seat of life. The rabbis also derived from the Bible a ban on eating milk products together with meat products.
Fill your glass, okay?
Hey.
The link to the Holy Land is a vital strand of Judaism. It was integral from the very outset in the covenant between God and Abraham. The religious quality of life in the land of Israel was seen as superior to life elsewhere. Not only could more of the commandments be observed there, in Israel, and especially in Jerusalem, the Jew saw himself as being closer to God's presence.
Jerusalem represented the place where God's presence was felt. You could, quote, see God, but you could feel it there like you feel it nowhere else in the world. It represented the high point, in a certain sense, of Jewish history. King David, King Solomon, a marvelous time. And it has always been the symbolic, spiritual center of the Jewish people. We went away from Jerusalem. We will come back to Jerusalem. Back to Jerusalem.
Certainly the state of Israel is of primary concern to Jews throughout the world today. Beginning in the latter part of the 19th century, when Jews were expelled from Russia, from Poland, from most of Eastern Europe, the migration back to the Holy Land began once again in earnest. And then along came Hitler and the tragedy of the Holocaust. And part of that tragedy was that those Jews who might have escaped the Nazi tyranny had no place to go.
I think what happened is that as the modern West was taking shape through the Renaissance and later on, is that the problem of the Jewish community of what to do with Jews became built into Western culture and Western civilization. And they continued to be a problem all the way up into the 20th century.
You take the United States today, you know, in some parts of the country, Jews were not allowed years ago. For the same reason that Nazi Germany killed 6 million Jews for no other reason that they were Jews. And we were hated in Russia just because we were a minority and we were Jewish people. And in 1980,